And I tell you what, Cash, I'm going to have you do, where are you? There you are. How about, is there a bottle of water back there for me somewhere? Well, how about you grab that? Would that be all right with you while I'm, oh, well, thank you, Brennan. Give Brennan a round of applause, would you? Thank you very much. I don't think a sip of water's ever tasted any better than that one right there. But let me tell you, we always try to stay in as, unfortunately, as cheap of a motel room as we possibly can, because try to save as much money. You know, I'm sure a lot of you that have been to bluegrass performances before have heard the old saying, you can make hundreds of dollars a year playing bluegrass music, and that's about the truth. But sometimes we get into some places that we really shouldn't be staying at. Let me tell you what, that's the honest to goodness truth. And just last weekend we were up in, where was we were at? Up in Pennsylvania or Ohio or somewhere along up through there. I don't recall where, but we stayed in some little motor lodge. And Friday night we stayed there, and it was not the nicest room you ever stayed in your life, let me tell you. But Cash didn't care a bit in the world about it. He didn't care much for it at all. Said the towels were too thick. And he said it made it real hard to shut the suitcase and got ready to leave them towels. I shouldn't tell that, that's awful. But no, so the next night we went on down our old little place and found us a little $79.99 little deal down there, you know. Had it advertised up on the side of the highway, so we whooped in there just as quick as we could. It's late at night, and we got in down there. Brennan, you know, our bass player, he does a wonderful job, but he can always get into some shenanigans, if I can get the word out, that really don't need to be a part of. But we's down there, and we worked a long set somewhere up along through there, and been hot about like it is today. Brennan said, I just want a Coca-Cola, and I want to go to bed. And so he said, I'm going to run out there and see if I can find the Coca-Cola machine, get me a nice cold drink, and go to bed. I said, well, all right. So he took off down there with his sack of quarters. He's going to bring us all one. So he took off down there to try to find the Coca-Cola machine. Well, he walked all the way around the upstairs part where we had our rooms. And couldn't find the machine, so he walked downstairs. Couldn't find the machine down there. We ran into a lady. Said, excuse me, ma'am. Said, have you seen the Coca-Cola machine? She said, let me tell you something. She put her hand on her hip. Now, for the married folks out here, married gentlemen, you know if your wife ever puts her hand on her hip, something fixing to come out that you might need to hang on tight for. But anyway, so she put her hand on her hip and said, let me tell you something, sir. Said, I have walked all around this property and have not found the Coca-Cola machine. Well, Brennan said, I'm going to run up there to the room. He said, I'm going to get on the phone, call the manager, and find out where this Coca-Cola machine is. She said, don't worry about that. I done tried. Said, there's no telephone in the room to call the manager. If you wanted to, ask about the Coca-Cola machine. She was upset. Well, Brennan, he said, I don't know what the deal is with this place. He said, this place ain't worth 2 cents. He said, we're just going to go on down the road a little bit. Well, she said, let me tell you something else that's awful about this place. She said, I'm down there in the very far end room. And said, just ever so often the train comes by, and my window is right there on the train side, and that old freight train will jar the room so hard it'll throw you plumb up out of the bed and into the floor. Brennan said, I doubt that. Said, I don't think that's right. Well, she just grabbed him by the hand and said, well, come on down here and let me show you. Well, she took off with old Brennan, and Brennan just followed her right down there. You know, he just took off with her, just as innocent as he is, bless his heart. He took off down there with her. They got down there to the end room. She flopped up there on the bed, and she scooted over and said, well, sit down here. Well, Brennan sat down there. She said, train be by in about 5 minutes. They sitting there waiting. Well, about that time, her husband walked in the door. And it was at that moment in time when Brennan knew he was in a sort of a predicament. And her husband said, oh my gosh, what are you doing in bed with my wife? Brennan said, would you believe waiting on a train? Oh, mercy, waiting on a train. Well, we got him out of that predicament, went on deck now down to the next cracker box and stayed the night there. And we had us a good night's rest and come on down this way to see you all. So we're glad to be here. Oh, well, we're going to spend the night at home tonight, so that's good. We don't have to worry about none of that sort of mess. I tell you what, Cash, let's do a good old gospel song, kind of clean things up a little bit now. This is a great old Happy Goodman song, and I love this tune. It's entitled John the Revelator. 1. to write about the things he saw. The Revelator's name was John. John the Revelator saw Jerusalem coming down. John the Revelator, and when he looked around, he saw feet like brass, eyes like fire, and he heard a great voice say, "Come up high." John the Revelator, Lord, he wrote about the city of God. Spirit friend, John turned around to see that if the voice that he had heard was what it seemed to be. Now just like a many waters and the great trumpet sound, he